What's going on, guys? We're on day 3 of doing this engine overhaul. I've not spent 3 full days on this, just 1 full day and then a couple of hours after work last night. Today I'm going to try and get the Vanos and everything all cleaned up. It is rebuilt already. I just want to clean the block up, get the gaskets on and actually get the valve cover back on as well, just so that it's protected. And then I'm going to have a go at the water pump while I've got the engine mount out. Let's do this. Now, if you watched the previous parts of this series, you'll have seen how difficult it was to get the Vanos off. I haven't moved the engine, it's still just dropped down as far as it can go without the right engine mount in. So this should go back in, and it does go back in. It just took a bit of wriggling around and eventually got there. Now it's just a case of replacing the 7 nuts that attach the Vanos to the cylinder head. I actually went out and bought myself a brand new, very small torque wrench to do this, just because all of the nuts and bolts and things are very low torque, and the torque wrenches that I do have were a little bit too big to do this job with confidence. And using an assortment of extensions and different sockets and things, just because access is terrible, I managed to get everything torqued to spec and put back together. Another good tip for you, if you're doing any work like this around this area, watch out for this pipe. It is super brittle. There were specific instructions in the Vanos refurb kit to be really careful with it because it must have a reputation for breaking. Having read the stuff that I've read, I've developed a bit of a fear of these little bolts because I've heard bad things and they snap really easily apparently, so I'm going to be super careful, triple check my torque specs. Vanos mounting bolts, 8 Newton meters. Left hand thread. That's it, they're in. Phew, that's sick. Right, next, get the little plastic plugs, put them back in, pop these little guys in. That's it now. It's good. Try again. Make sure it's seated properly, which it is, feels like it is. Now, Vanos cylinder front bolts, 50 Newton meters of torque. Okay, let's do it. So the kit that I got came with some fresh ones of those. Really satisfying to like have nice fresh stuff to put in. These are 8mm hex. It's a shame I can't drop the engine just a tiny bit more because I'd have much better access. It's a pretty dumb design this, because nobody wants to take the engine out to do jobs like this, do they? Alright, I have no idea how I'm going to get 50 Newton meters on there. Come on, going in. So dumb. So I'm just going to have to use what I used to take these out, and that is literally just a regular Allen key. Great design. Shout out BMW. I saw somebody on the forums say, just do them up. Stupid tight, minus 30%. So that's what I'm shooting for. And I think that's fine. Right, now it's time to have a good look in here and make sure there's no bits of that stupid gasket, because that wouldn't be great, and then get the valve cover back on. What's happening, guys? Today's a new day. I had to leave the valve cover just because I pressure washed it. It was wet. I didn't want to get the compressor out to blow the air out, and I couldn't put it back on with any hint of moisture on it, so I left it for the day. It's super dry now. Next job, get that gasket in there, get that back onto the cylinder head, and then whilst I've got the engine in the state that it's in, I'm going to remove the water pump and replace that, and I'm also going to take the crank pulley off and replace that crank seal. So let's do this. So that's a new gasket in. Obviously I've given it a good clean. It's still not perfect, but you know, I've been over it a number of times with all sorts of cleaners and stuff. I've pressure washed it. That's actually a lot better than it was, so I'm quite happy with the state of that now. I think that's fine to put back on. It's a hell of a lot better than it was. The new gasket is super, it's lovely, it's super pliable compared to the last one, which was just like basically hard plastic. New gasket is in. The instructions on this X8R kit reckon that I should put some RTV sealant around the corners of the half moon bits. So I'm going to put a bit of sealant on there, drop it on, 8 Newton meters of torque on the bolts. That's the next job. Let's go. So it's definitely worth having another pair of hands around to help you get the valve cover back on, just because the gasket doesn't necessarily want to stay in the groove that it lives in. Then it's just a case of putting all the bolts back in one by one and torquing them down to 8 Newton meters of torque in a crisscross pattern. Now I've just got to reconnect all the bits that attach to the Vanos, so that is the oil feed line there. There's a solenoid beneath that, there's a solenoid on the other side, and then there's just the camshaft position sensor to reconnect as well. Now to reconnect all the ignition wiring that lives on top of the valve cover. And now I can drop those coil packs back in and get them reconnected. Next up, get this water pump out. So we're going to take the pulley off first, which is these 4 10mm bolts. Let's go. Now it's about this point you realise that you're not going to get that water pump out without jacking the engine up, so good job we've already got the engine mount out. Even jacking the engine up all the way, it's still a really tight squeeze. So it actually doesn't look like it's in too bad condition. It doesn't really make any noises or anything, but this is more of a preventative thing. And the one that I've got actually has a metal impeller as well, so it's a bit of an upgrade, I suppose. It looks like it's been on there for a long time, so it's worth doing anyway. But yeah, also it helps drain a bit more coolant out of the engine, because I'm going to put pink coolant in at the moment. I believe it's supposed to be blue. The BMW stuff is blue, so that's actually putting it more back to stock, which is a good thing really. Just a quick comparison, the old one versus the new one. So yeah, as you can see, metal impeller as opposed to plastic. Got to be an upgrade, hasn't it? Yeah, there it is. Nice. Next job, crank pulley off, replace the crank seal. Let's go. So from what I understand, the crank pulley is held on at 420 Newton meters of torque, which is a lot, but I do have a breaker bar, so I should be able to get it off. In order to take that off, obviously I have to do something to stop it from rotating. There is a little inspection hole, so you can see the flywheel in there. You can see inside there, it's full of oil as well, so I think it's definitely the rear crank seal that's leaking there as well, so if and when I come to do the clutch, I'll do that crank seal as well. You might be surprised to learn that I don't have an official BMW crank locking tool, but what I do have is a big chisel. I'm going to jam it in there, and that's going to prevent it from turning whilst I try and break the massive bolt that holds the crank pulley on. Hope it works. It should work. Wish me luck. Now I didn't get a lot of great footage of getting the crank pulley bolt out, but believe me when I say it was tight. I got my huge breaker bar on it like that, and what I ended up having to do was put the chisel up into the flywheel and get a jack underneath it just so that it would stay in place, and then both me and my girlfriend both put all of our weight on it, and eventually we got the lock on the bolt broken. It's a real big boy. I think that's 420 Newton meters. that I need to get it back up to, and I don't have a torque wrench that goes that far, so I'm just going to have to tighten it as hard as I can. It took 2 of us on that breaker bar pulling with all of our might to get that off, but we got it and it's out, and now I should be able to get this crank off, but it's probably going to be pretty tight. It doesn't want to move. I think I just need a little persuader. There we go. There she is. Definitely got a crank seal leak there. You can see right all behind that pulley. So for now I'm going to clean all that up and start looking at taking this crank seal out and hope for the best. So I've got it out. I ended up, so I was drilling pilot holes to start with in it, and I don't think the screw was tight enough in those pilot holes, so what I did was just get a fresh screw and just put a bit of force on it so it got a really good hold in the seal, because it was just pulling out the holes that I was drilling to start with. But yeah, it was in there pretty good. So I'm just going to clean that up and do my best to tap the new one in now. Fingers crossed that should be a good job done, and then I've just got to get the crank pulley back on, tighten it up to the best of my ability and hope for the best. It should be okay, I think. Crankshaft locked. Nice. I got some pretty good weight on that. I hope that's enough. I've got no way of knowing. I'm gonna have a bit of a tidy up, get rid of all the oil stains, so next time I get under it I should be able to see what's been leaking. The rear main seal's definitely leaking, I think, so that needs addressing next, and I might as well do the clutch at the same time, I suppose. But that's content for another video. Stay tuned. Get subscribed if you haven't already, because if you're enjoying this and want to see more stuff like this, please support the channel, help me out. Just hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button. There's going to be loads more videos coming. I've already got like the next 3 or 4 videos planned out, so it'll just encourage me to make more content like this. For the time being, I'm going to get all this cleaned up. I'll get my new coolant bottle in and get it all put back together and hope that I've done everything right and the engine still works, because I've done quite a few things now, and I think it's time to give it a test drive and start breaking that Vanos in and see what it's like. So all that's left to do is bolt the engine mounts back down. Can't forget that. That would be that would probably be a bit of a disaster, or it might be quite funny, who knows. Get everything buttoned back up, get the belts back on, get the cooling fan back in and the coolant bottle back on, get everything clipped up, get the coolant system topped up, or actually filled up because it should be totally empty now, top the oil up, and then I can start the engine. So let's do this. I just took the pin that was holding the tensioner back, and it's obviously been sat for quite a long time. It's probably been about a week since I started this, maybe just over a week since I started all of this, and that's been in there. But I need to use something better than a shitty old nail. So what I'll do as well, now that I've got the belt back on, is just crank it over a few times and just make sure the belt stays where it's meant to be. I've always had the water pump off, water pump pulley, I've had the crank pulley off, and yeah, I just want to make sure it's all sat right, so I'm just going to crank that over a few times. Looks pretty good. Alright, happy with that. I'll get the next belt on. Yeah, simple as that. So I just take the tension off that tensioner down there, with T60 box bit. I'll just crank it a few more times. Stays where it's going to be. Looks pretty good. I've just put the old belts back on just because they didn't look too bad and I don't have a replacement, but they're pretty easy to do, so I might do them in the future. This is the old coolant bottle. I suspected it was leaking, but I can't see any cracks in it at all. It actually looks alright, but since I've got a new one anyway, I might as well just get it replaced because there'll be some new seals in the bottom and everything. So I couldn't quite get it out of the car without this bracket, so I have to figure out how to take it off this bracket. There we go. It's just a bit stubborn. No biggie. And hopefully this sorts out my coolant leak and we don't see any more. Just give it a clean up and get the new one on. Get it back in the car. That in there now. Just got to remember where all these goddamn bolts came from. Right, let's get this back on the car. Top the coolant up, the oil's fine, we didn't lose a lot of oil when we did this, so I'm gonna fire it up, see what happens. So I didn't put the fuel pump fuses back in, did I? Oh man, I was worried then. Okay, let's try that again. So 33, 10 amp back in, and 19 is 20 amp. Right, fingers crossed. Come on. Come on. No obvious leaks. Nice. No engine lights, always a good thing. Cool. I'm happy with that. Right, let's get it all finished off. Let's go. That is a wrap. Next part of this video is going to be a proper test drive, but I'm not going to do that right now because I've got better things to be doing right now. Cheers everyone. So the only things left to do are to refix the under trays and have a little tidy up, and we go again tomorrow. The moment's finally arrived. I can actually take it for a test drive. Full disclosure, I have taken it out once already, but not very far. Everything seemed all right. I haven't really properly gotten it up to temperature. I'm going to give it a bit of a run now for a few miles. Let's get that roof down. Nice. Don't have any engine light on. Bought a new cable for Impa. I was messing around so much with the cable, a cheap one that I got off eBay, and it just wasn't working no matter what I tried. But I've got a different one. It was about £20. Plugged it in, worked straight away. So managed to clear the airbag light. We'll see if that comes back on after a good drive. I'm going to give it a good drive out for 10 miles or so, get it up to temperature, make sure I don't get any more engine lights coming on or anything like that. Hopefully we don't get any leaks, we don't get any errors or issues or anything like that. I've got a few tools in the boot just in case we do. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it should feel a bit pokier. That's supposed to be how these things go. When you refurb the Vanos, it should feel like it felt when it came out of the factory. So I'm going to take it up the road, see how we get on, get it nice and warm, and I'll check under the bonnet when I get to where we're going. So obviously I've done quite a few jobs. Did the water pump, done the crank seal. Obviously they're not going to have any effect on performance, but the water pump was obviously a preventative maintenance thing to make sure that, you know, that's not going to pack in anytime soon. The crank seal was just fixing an oil leak, but the major thing that I'm testing right now is the Vanos refurb. Ultimately that should make the car feel like it's brand new again. That being said, I need to keep it under 3,000 or 4,000 revs for a good, you know, I think the manual said something like 100 miles. So, I mean, that might be quite difficult because I do enjoy a bit of a spirited drive, but we'll see. Get out into the country roads and see how she goes.
Whoa.
Feels pretty lively. Oh yeah, she feels good. Got a coolant light on. I'm gonna pull in. It could be that it just needs bleeding a little bit, or topping up. Oh yeah, I've got a leak. God damn it. Coolant all down there on the under tray. Well, such is life. It'll just be a hose that I haven't connected properly, probably. It looks like it's coming from the top though, because the top's wet. She's definitely leaking from somewhere. I better take her home. Coolant needs to get around the system anyway. Should really look up how I'm supposed to do it. There might be a bleed nipple somewhere or something, but there definitely seems to be a bit of a leak from, and obviously it's a new coolant bottle, so it's not coming from the bottle itself. It's just going to be coming from a hose or something. I'm going to take it a little bit further and see what it looks like. So just got it home, and obviously now it's hot and pressurized. You can actually hear that hiss, so I'm going to try and get this cover off as quickly as I can so that I can maybe see where it's coming from. So definitely looks like it's coming from here somewhere. They both look like they're on properly to me, so I don't know whether I've got to seal or something, or if indeed this is cracked. I don't know. I can't really do anything until it cools down now, but at least you can see it kind of looks like it's coming from that cracking down in there. Found my leak. So it wasn't in a connection, it was right there. You see that? Something's melted a hole into that. God knows how that's happened, but it's happened. Anyway, I'll get a new part on order. But if you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button please. It really helps me out, really encourages me to keep going. It takes me a long time, a lot of effort, and quite a bit of money as well to keep these videos coming out. So seeing those numbers cranking up really motivates me. So if you like this sort of stuff and you want to see more of it, hit the subscribe button for more content like this, hit that like button, drop me a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.